miscommunication, lots of funny things running around at the moment. And the purpose of tonight, you rarely have these kind of caliber of politicians and officials in one room. That doesn't happen before. So to have a minister, to have the speaker, to have the head of housing for City of Cape Town, is a privilege. And I think you will not get an opportunity like this often again to pose the questions, doing this as loud as we can. We put speakers outside to accommodate those outside as well. In terms of the venue, can only apologize for that. We really can only apologize. This, the process of organizing these things, this was the hall that was available. Other halls were tried and they were not available. And it is a real pity we can't accommodate those that are outside, but thank you very much for coming. By way of introduction, just who I am, my name is Willem Steenkamp. I'm the advisor to the Minister, the Provincial Minister of Human Settlements, in the old days called Housing. To my right, Minister Right. Welcome, Minister. And to his right is Councillor Benedicta van Minnen. She is the mayoral committee member in charge of human settlements for the City of Cape Town. Effectively what that means is that she is the go-to person for the mayor when it comes to anything related to human settlements development. And to the right of Councillor van Minnen is our speaker, Alderman Dirk Smit, well known to many of you, a resident in the area, as is I am. And to his right, Councillor Bremer from the Blouberg Sub-Council. So you've got a full house. I've also got representation here. Okay, we'll try and do this a bit louder. We've also got Mr. Gavin Coder here. Gavin? Where's he? Sitting there on my left. Minister Donald Grant, who the Minister for Public Works, would have joined us tonight. Unfortunately, he's had to attend to a very urgent and serious matter. And to that extent, he's mandated his Deputy Director General, Gavin Coder, to attend on his behalf. Gavin is also a specialist within the Department of Public Works when it comes to state assets or land matters. So he's here for the Q&A session or to the end of the session. I cannot do anything louder than this, man. I'm really sorry. I'm really speaking as loud as I can. If you cannot hear me, can the people hear me at the back? Okay.
Can you turn the PA up?
It's on its loudest. It's on its loudest. I'm really sorry. Okay, so just to conclude on that, Gavin is here for the Q&A session, and I think just a couple of house rules. No one is here to fight tonight. That must be put. No. We've got to get the basics clear. I want to make this pertinently clear. Every one of these individuals, to my right and to my left, that are here tonight, have done so and have chosen not to be with their families because they wanted to come and speak to you. They've chosen to be here to come and talk to you about concerns that you've raised. So we have to get a couple of ground rules here. Tonight is an information session where they will speak to you and inform you about the true facts of ERF1117. There's a lot of misinformation going around, and tonight is especially there for those people that have said, I've heard there's an issue, I want to get the facts, I want to go home tonight and I want to understand what's going on, and I want to know what my rights is, and I want to know where this is going. So for those of you that are here for that purpose, we are here to support you and to assist you and to answer those questions. For those that choose to be here to make trouble, we cannot help you. We are here to assist, and I want to make that message very, very clear. So can we all agree that we're here to talk to each other as civilized individuals, because otherwise we're wasting each other's time. So I think without further ado, because we're already running 10 minutes late, just quickly want to introduce you, and I must apologize, I haven't followed full protocol. We've got our ward councillor, Nora Groves, here as well. Apologies, Nora. I didn't see you hiding there in the right-hand corner. I'm going to hand over to Nora. She is your ward councillor. She is your go-to person in the area when it comes to issues. Just to do a quick word, and we'll immediately then move on to Minister Madikizele and our audience members. Very importantly, as I've suggested, let's get through what our guests want to tell us and what they want to talk. We'll get to a Q&A session that I promise you towards the end of this, where we will be given, everyone will be given an opportunity to ask questions. Thank you. All right.
Thank you, Willem. Welcome, Minister. Welcome, Councillor. Hello, can you hear me, sir?
No.
Okay. Welcome again, Minister Bongi, Councillor van Minnen, Mr. Speaker, and also we would like to welcome our Chair, Sub-Councillor Chair, Councillor Brenner. And most of all, I want to say thank you to you, our members of society and the public. This is really heartwarming to know that there's still people interested of what's going on in their hood, as we call it around here. And sorry, my apologies, we also have Councillor Joy McCarthy blending in here with the youth. I didn't see her at first, so welcome Joy with us. So feel free tonight, as Willem introduced, we do want to give you all the information which you have a right to, and feel free to ask questions. So please bear with us with the mic and all the shortcomings. We will probably have a follow-up meeting just to feedback if it's necessary. So welcome with us tonight. Thank you.
Obviously playing a bit of musical chairs yet, but it's the best we can do. Okay. I immediately want to put Minister Madikizela to word. He became aware of this issue actually quite a couple of months ago. It was an issue which was initially raised by the ward councillor, and after consultation with the executive mayor, Patricia de Lille, as well as the ward councillor, Councillor van Minnen, and several other political principals within the province, deemed it incredibly necessary to be here tonight, to introduce himself to you and to also hopefully allay fears that you have. But without any further ado, Mr. Madikizela.
Mr. Steenkamp, thank you very much. I hope those who are outside will also hear me. I will try to speak as loud as I can. Thank you very much, Mr. Steenkamp, to the Speaker, my colleague, Mayor Member of Human Settlements in the city. As I said, I will try to speak as loud as I can. To the Mayor Member, my colleague, to all the councillors who are here, ladies and gentlemen. I think Willem touched on some of the things that I wanted to say in my opening remarks, but I think I must also apologize for the fact that a number of people are outside because the venue could not accommodate everyone. Now, this meeting is about really setting the record straight about what is happening in ERF1117. And I think the first thing that is going to happen is that the Mayor Member from the city will give us a bit of a background around this ERF. Because I am aware, in fact, there's been a lot of media interest and also a lot of interest from a number of people from the area who wanted to know what is exactly our intention as government. And this is exactly what we are coming to explain here. And after giving a brief history around this ERF, I will then come in and talk about the way forward from our side as government, and also clarify some of the issues that were distorted from the correspondences that I have seen going around. So tonight is about engagement. Tonight is about engagement between us as government representatives here and yourselves, to set the record straight, but also to talk about the intention from the government and the reason behind the interest in this particular land from us as government. But before I come with the way forward in terms of our thinking, I will ask my colleague to give background so that we can, as it is said. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and good evening. I'm going to speak as loudly as I can. I just want to apologize to the people who are outside. I hope that they can hear us. Now, in terms of the meeting here this evening, we have come to, as the Minister says, set the record straight. There has been a great deal of disinformation going around. There has been a great deal of rumour mongering going around. And the fact is very simple. ERF1117 belongs to the National Department of Public Works. It does not belong to the province. It does not belong to the City of Cape Town. Now, I want to support the ward councillor and the sub-council chair and what they have consistently been saying, that the City of Cape Town does not have plans to develop a low-cost housing development on ERF1117. Let me be clear on that. That is a central message that has to be carried across. A lot of people have had a lot to say on this issue without reference to the city. Now, I can't stop them saying things, but I can give you the facts here tonight and sincerely hope that you listen to them, and when people come with scurrilous stories, that you put them right. Now, in terms of this ERF, it was subdivided in 1998 from ERF268 and currently resides with National Department of Public Works. In terms of what has been happening, I do have an official here who can talk to the technicalities, but essentially at the end of 2014, the City of Cape Town was approached by the Department of National Public Works that wanted to know that in the event that they transferred that to the NDA, the HDA, would the City of Cape Town, who's essentially be a third party in this process, compensate the Department of National Public Works for that transfer. The city turned that down. The city is, however, interested in acquiring the land because obviously we wish to control what happens in terms of development in this area and along the West Coast corridor. It is strategic land that we obviously take cognizance of, and as a result, it has appeared in a number of documents from the city and from the province. Now, I know that you have seen a number of those documents and that it has been used to drive concern about the future of that land. None of those documents comprise a plan for a housing development for low-cost housing in that area. It also does not form part of the housing project pipeline, and in fact the city is currently focusing on the development corridors of Voortrekker Road as well as the southeast of the city. We are also currently involved with negotiations for the purchase of a large piece of land situated elsewhere in the city. So it must be remembered that we currently do not have plans in the City of Cape Town to develop that land into low-cost housing. In any event, were there at some point in the future be plans to look at developing that land, a number of things would be triggered and would have to happen. There would have to be a land planning process which would include issues like rezoning, as it is currently zoned agricultural. There would also need to be an EIA, an environmental impact assessment. All of that would involve extensive public participation with the stakeholders and with the public and with the people who live in this area. So please, the stories that have been carried around that I have seen over the last week, that the city is planning to build a low-cost development and that tonight is the only opportunity you have to object to that, are blatantly untrue and simply scurrilous stories being passed around by people with an agenda. It is that simple. Now, I'm also just going to touch on the issue of Happy Valley before I hand over to the official to discuss the issues of what has been happening with that land. Firstly, there was criticism from a statement that came out from my office saying that the people in Radar Road were going to be relocated to Wolverderfeed. The Radar Road settlement that was referred to is the Radar Road situated in Richwood. It is not referring to the people in Happy Valley. Happy Valley is situated, as we've said, on Department of National Public Works, which is thus, for the issues of the city, private land. The city cannot evict people from private land. It would have to be Department of National Public Works who would need to bring an eviction application to evict those people. So therefore, to continually appeal to the city to come and clear the people off the land is something that falls outside of a city's capacity. Obviously, in terms of housing, across the city we have a housing database, and we encourage people in need of housing to register on there as a beneficiary. That would also be the case with people living in Happy Valley. But it does not mean that we as the city can simply come in, remove people from private land with no regard to what the legal issues are. Now I'm just going to ask Mr. Kunz from Human Settlements in the City of Cape Town just to talk to the technicalities of the issue with the land.
Thank you, Councillor van Minnen. I'll also speak a bit louder. I'm not normally in the habit of screaming. I've been looking at this land from a human settlements point of view for several years now, going back probably to the year 2009. And the purpose was never really to develop it for low-cost housing. The reason we've been looking at it specifically was because, one, the grant funding that we get from National Treasury that we would be using to acquire the land if we ever got to that point flows through the Human Settlements Department or the Housing Department. Number two, we believe that the site itself is actually far too valuable if you look at it at a regional level to develop for low-cost housing. And from a rates base, from a consumer point of view, it actually doesn't make much sense. If you were at a commercial mind, that wouldn't be the place to put them. You would also recognize that the railway line is further inland, and public transport is what the people will be depending on first and foremost. But we are very concerned that the land is not being cared for by the landowner, and it's certainly not being surveilled by the landowner. So our interest in acquiring it has always been one of rather get control of the site so that we can determine what happens in the city rather than allow it to get out of hand. And that has been our biggest concern for the moment. Councillor van Minnen has already mentioned that by the time we ever get any rights, whether it's in law or in ownership over the land, to do something with it as a council, it will have to follow a rezoning process. It will have to follow a public participation process. And trust me, those are long, drawn-out processes. You'll see it in the media routinely. You will have input at that level. So I don't know if there are any other points, but just to put you at ease, it is not our intention to put a large low-cost housing project on that site. You won't find it anywhere in the IDP, you won't find it anywhere in our council reporting, and it's certainly not on our project's pipeline. You will not see it there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. By the time I did the introductions, Mr. Kim wasn't here. Jens Kim is manager within the City of Cape Town for all their land purchases and disposal, so he knows what he's talking about when it gets to that. I think something that is incredibly important to emphasize here tonight, and Councillor van Minnen has alluded to this quite directly. Irrelevant of the stories running around, there is an incredibly long and drawn-out legal process to be followed for any piece of land to be developed. The stories running around that there's a plan that's been approved for this property is blatantly nonsense. There is no plan. There has been a process by national government in the past to do a land audit all over the country of land that belongs to different national departments. And every provincial department, in this case Human Settlements, has been part of that process from a reporting point of view. But I can assure you, not any one of these people would be sitting here and telling you that there is or isn't a plan if they weren't 100% sure of the facts. There is no plan that was ever submitted for public participation. There has been no consultation process. There's been no environmental authorization process that's been initiated. So, if anything, from all your concerns and all your fears, please be assured that even if this property is to be developed in the future, and I think you've had the commitment here from the city, that the commitment is not a low-cost housing development. And in fact, I want to put this into even further context. Provincial government of Western Cape, under the leadership of our Premier Helen Zille, initiated roughly about 4 to 5 months ago, Minister Madikizele, a number of provincial strategic goals. And one of those goals were quite specifically that the days of going out and taking large portions of land and developing them into RDP, these days it's not called RDP, it's called BNG. I saw in one of the pamphlets running around, there was a claim of 13,660 RDP properties that have been approved. It's absolute rubbish. Our Premier approved in Cabinet a process whereby land that belongs to provincial government, and even to the city for that matter, would be reviewed very differently going forward. The days of taking a piece of property, building 10,000 BNG free houses are gone. We don't do it. We just don't do it. It's not sustainable. It's not the way it should be. And it also means that amenities and social facilities that those people need don't come with those developments. And the plan is far greater. The plan is far greater in the sense of assessing what the needs are in an area, assessing what social amenities are needed. And just by briefly looking at the area, the only thing I could see is private hospitals. I didn't see anything in terms of government hospitals. There's still today a lack of schooling facilities and educational and social amenities. So when we start talking about strategic land, when we start talking about land being strategically located, ERF1117 is one of those properties. And I think people must stop just thinking about housing. If government was to review doing anything about that, they would take all those things into account under the new provincial goal, which is looking at these things differently and not just going in and putting down masses of low-cost housing. So, as many of you asked us to get to the point, I think we got to the point quite quickly. And if I could have it my way, I would not want our political principles, or my political principles, because you could choose any party you choose to vote for. But if you feel that they still have to be here for the Q&A session, then I think we've got to get to those those questions right now. And I think, as I said before, let's try and keep this very civilized. I'm pretty sure everyone wants to have a question put forward, but I cannot take 2,000 questions. And I will direct them not necessarily to the Minister, but to the technical expertise that we've got here as well, both from provincial government, our Deputy Director General, as well as Mr. Jenskin from the city. Right. The gentleman with the purple shades. If you don't mind just introducing yourself very loudly so that I can, for those outside, also introduce you on your behalf.
Byron, I'm a resident of Sunningdale.
Okay. For those outside, it's Iron from Sunningdale. Tyron. Okay. Tyron, your question.
You mentioned that it's a long and drawn-out process and land belongs to public works. Okay. My concern is, if it's long and drawn-out, I can see the Happy Valley community seems to be growing by the day. What's going to be done about that?
Okay.
Because if it takes another 5 years, before we know it, we're going to have the massive informal settlement and a massive farm hotspot.
Okay, for those that didn't hear, for those outside, the question from Taryn from Sunningdale. Tyron, sorry. Tyron. We'll get it right, don't worry. Tyron's question was in terms of the informal settlement, or referred to as Happy. For those that don't know, the informal settlement on ERF1117 is called Happy Valley. I don't really know who chose that name, but what the city is planning to do, what are we as government planning to do about that in order to stop it from growing? Am I correct? Is that your question? Right. I would actually like to pass that question to Councillor van Binnen. I think let's take 3 questions. Okay. I'm looking for a lady. We've given a gentleman a chance. Let's go there. Okay. Your name, please?
Hi, sir. My name is Salinka. Good evening, sir. My name is Salinka, and I saw an email that was passed around with the logo of the City of Cape Town with low-cost housing and say, this is the future of Cape Town and this is what the City of Cape Town is proposing. And that email was spread all around with that particular photo with the logo of the city on it.
Okay, thank you for that question. Just for those outside, the question was with regards to an email that supposedly circulated from the City of Cape Town, which indicated, if that would actually help, can we get a copy of that so we can just see what we're talking about? Okay. I'm going to have our ward councillor answer that? No, it's not. Actually, I've actually seen that. It's not that one. Yeah, can we get that, please? And I'm going to get your ward councillor for 23, Councillor Nora Gross, to answer that one. Right, third question, last question for this round.
Can we have representation out here? Thanks.
Noddy. Okay.
Hello. Thanks for this, but there's two questions I want to ask you. The first thing is you don't own the land, so how can you speak for the government? What I'd like to understand and hear is from the government exactly what they intend to do with the land. Because you guys don't have the land. Secondly,
I'm sorry, I said three questions. I'll give everyone an opportunity. You've asked one question. Thank you. No.
Who's fair?
Everyone wants to have an opportunity. If I give everyone two questions, then everyone's got to get two questions. Very simple. Okay. So the third question was, the gentleman referred to the land belonging to national government, and what can provincial government or local government, City of Cape Town, do about any of that? Okay. Okay. Let's just get to our first question here, which was with regard to Happy Valley and the informal settlement and the growth thereof. Councillor van Minne.
Thank you. Okay. I did allude to the Happy Valley issue earlier. As I say, and as Tyrone has said, it is on private land belonging to Department of National Public Works. That means that the city cannot go on there and evict people. That said, the Anti-Land Invasion Unit is constantly engaging with the Department of National Public Works in order to find a way forward so that we can ultimately find a solution to that issue. Also, as I said, we have the issue of the housing database list, which we're also going to ensure that the people are on, if they're beneficiaries, in order to ultimately benefit from a housing opportunity. So it is something we are aware of. It is something that the department is monitoring. There has been the toilets put in there from a humane point of view in the standpipe to ensure that it does not become a health hazard, which I know people are very concerned about. And it is also why it is so important that we need to ultimately be able to deal with that land and to acquire that land so that we are in a position, jurisdictional-wise, to deal with that settlement. So ultimately at this point what it is we are talking to National Department of Public Works to find a way forward so that it doesn't end up becoming a problem as you have indicated you're concerned about. Now in terms of the issue with the email, no one has been able to show the actual document. So not this one. I'm going to need to see which one that is. There has been a fraudulent document circulated and a complaint has been put in to the Office of the Speaker.
Is a fraudulent document put on your website?
Like I say, we'll look into that and I'll speak to the Speaker about that issue now.
Thank you. Thanks. Okay, let's just get to our third question. Can I just quickly... What was the... Okay, the question regarding what can Western Cape government do if they don't own the land? And it's land.
What is the national government going to do then?
Yes, you misinterpreted my question.
Quite simply, but I'm going to pass this over to Minister Madikizele because he's, in terms of protocol, he's the one that liaises with national government and the ministers at that level. Thank you.
Okay, let us not assume that every black person is ANC. As part of the Western Cape government, the question about land ownership, and it's one of the reasons why, in fact, when we started to identify strategically located pieces of land. That piece of land is one of them, because we wanted to make sure, as my colleague from the city said, that we wanted to make sure that we have control over what is happening there. Now, I can say to you now that the negotiations are at a very advanced stage with the National Public Works. There's been an ongoing engagement between ourselves, the city, and the Department of Public Works. They are amenable to give us control of the land, but we just need to sort out some conditions that we do not agree with. But we are hopeful that as the city and province, we will gain ownership of that land, because it's part of a number of other pieces of land that we have been negotiating with the National Public Works about, so that we can gain ownership, so that we can be able to have control over what happens in the long run. But what I can tell you now is that the National Department of Public Works, which is the landowner, cannot do anything there without our consent, as the city and the province. And anything that is contrary to what we think is better in that piece of land, we will object to it. And that is an assurance that we can give you as the representatives of both from province and the city. So, because as we said, we believe that that piece of land is strategically located piece of land. Anything that we do there, we must make sure that we engage with yourselves, so that anything that we do there becomes acceptable in terms of the type of development that we may choose to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
I said earlier we're going to speak directly, and this gentleman just to put, I said my first opening words to you, we're going to put the record straight tonight. Just so you know, this is the Deputy Leader of the Democratic Alliance, Salome. Right. Let's take 3 more questions. I'm going to give the ladies a first chance this time. The lady with the beautiful red scarf.
Hi, I'm Jenny Williams. I just want to refer to the document that you spoke about earlier in the last set of questions. I have an extract from the BEP, the Built Environment Performance Plan of 2014-15, which says National Public Works Properties, ERF1117, progress to date. The property has been valuated and a development plan developed and forwarded to the Department of Public Works. The submission relating to release of this property for human settlements awaits ministerial approval. So I would like to be put right. This document has got a lot of things about the settlement on this land, and there seems to be some controversy as to whether this is a legal document from the City of Cape Town. As somebody earlier said over there, that it has come off the City of Cape Town website, I believe. So I would like clarity on this.
Thank you. That's a valid question. Just to put context straight, the document we're referring to versus the other one are actually not the same. The document we're referring to is a document we got sight of as government, where someone had taken information, manipulated it, and put data on there, which is fraud. So that is something different.
So this is a valid document.
Yeah. Well, I didn't say that you did it, so if the shoe fits, my friend. But that's a very valid question.
So
we will
are you
address
saying,
that.
I need to know whether this document is actually legal or not.
There is the document you're referring to. I'm going to get Councillor Benedicta van Minnen, or actually Mr. Kim, to answer and put it into context. What's very important is to get the context of that document and what the involvement from National and the Western Cape. That's our first question. The second question.
Can I just interrupt there?
I'm sorry. I'm the program director. I'm the program director.
No, because it says the documents were fraud. The documents are actually on your side.
Okay.
And they're not fraud.
I'm going to have to ask you to please sit down. The majority of people are here to get answers. Right. Thank you. Okay. Can I get a second question, please?
That's the second question.
Right, so what is your circuit? By mutual agreement, you want him to have the second question. that takes your opportunity away. Second question then.
Okay, the question is, the documents which you say have been manipulated and fraudulent, they're actually on your website, taken directly, copy and pasted, nothing else. It was not doctored. If you go right there, right now, you'll see exactly the same thing. So I disagree with that comment. I'd like it reverting.
I don't see that as being a question, but your comment is noted. Thank you.
But then you're saying that we're lying and it's manipulated.
No.
It's actually from you.
No.
That's what that we learned.
Let's put the record straight.
That's what you just said. You just said words have been...
Do you want answers regarding ERF1117?
But you can't say that.
Or do you want to discuss a document which has been flying around which someone manipulated? Thank you. Can I get the second question, because no second question was posed? Hans Smith.
To accuse our community of manipulating documents twice in one speech.
Good evening, my name is Hans Smith. What I think the city has to have a very careful look at is the Blouberg district plan. That plan clearly indicates some form of low-cost housing. And the reason why I say it, there are extensive areas on that development plan which show high-density housing. Then it's layered to medium density to lower density, something like you get in Eagle Park on the other side of town. I think one of the key issues that the people here are worried about is not just devaluation of properties, but if your densities are too high, you're going to have a problem that people are going to have to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go to work. Because, in terms of the impact of traffic at schools and all those various things one has to look at. So I think the city has to have a relook at that Blouberg district plan. That's number one. Number two, the point to the Minister is that reference was made earlier about the HDA, the Housing Development Agency. National government set up their Housing Development Agency specifically to develop in areas where local authorities cannot develop, or in certain cases, I believe, could be political interventions. And I think it's very, very important that this does not become a political football being used by national government. And I believe there's a potential trap there, and I would just like to suggest that you keep a watch on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith, known each other for a long time. I didn't see a question coming from that. Can I take that as a comment, and can I move on to the second question, or would you like someone to respond to that? Okay, right, that's fine. We'll get the Minister to comment on that. So that was question 2. Third question, let's move. That gentleman over there, he's had his hand up for a long time.
Hi, my name's Justin. A question, can the government not put a mandamus on national government to enforce the removal of Happy Valley squatters, or the informal settlement? And settlements, sorry. And the second point is, I went to a speech by Dave McClellan from ASCA the other day, and I listened to him talk, and he's saying that the city is forcing high-density development all around this area, and that, in fact, they will not pass plans unless high density is put in. Can you please comment on that?
Okay, thank you. Just on our first question, I'd like to address that.
Look, I think on the issue of the document being on the city's website, I leave that to the city. I will comment on 2 things, on densification and HDA. I think all of us are aware of the challenges that we are facing as a city, which is not only a city problem, but quite frankly, it's a global problem. The problem of urbanization and immigration, which is a reality. And we have to collectively, together with our residents, we have to talk about these things as to how do we develop our areas, given the fact that, as you know, the city is between the sea and the mountain. We do not have a luxury of land where we can continue in some areas, building single stand houses. And those are realities that we need to confront. And quite frankly, it's a conversation that we must have as government together with yourselves as to how do we maximize or use the spaces that we have optimally so that we can accommodate a number of people who are quite frankly living in the city, because that's a reality that we must face. That the challenges of urbanization and immigration are a reality that we have to deal with every day. So this should be an ongoing engagement as to how do we then, particularly the land that we own, how do we use it optimally in order to accommodate residents that need it. Now, on the issue of HDA, Mr. Smith, HDA was asked by government, as you know, because I think you were still part of the seat at the time. And I think they did a very good job to really do a land audit, so that they can identify who owns what, because there was a time where the national government didn't know which pieces of land they own. And I think that exercise resulted in a situation where we know now in the city, who owns what in terms of different departments. We know which land is owned by Public Works, we know which land is owned by SOEs, etc. And that resulted in a process where we have now made submissions to the relevant departments after that process. Because at some point we didn't know who owned a particular piece of land from national. Now that we know, after that exercise, we are now able to make submissions to those relevant departments and ask for those pieces of land, because as we said, it is better if we have control over those pieces of land, especially strategically located pieces of land, so that we can control over what is going to happen to those pieces of land. So their responsibility ended there. I think they compiled the report and they submitted the report, and that is why we know now in the city who owns what. And the second process, of course, is to acquire those pieces of land by engaging relevant departments.
Thank you, Minister. We've answered some of the questions partly. I do want to get back to our first question, the lady with the red scarf. Jens, if you perhaps don't mind to just answer that one for us. Thank you.
That's the question about the built environment performance plan. I think you're in a very fortunate position that a lot of the publications which in Cape Town are produced are in fact on the website. If you compare that to some of our other metros, it's very difficult to find any information. But let me just talk to the Built Environment Performance Plan, BEPP. It's a relatively new animal. It's only been in existence for 3 years. It is a requirement from National Treasury that we produce this document if we are going to get our intergovernmental grants. All right? And we need to write up there what we roughly, in broad strokes, have in mind with the grants, and to illustrate that the money will be well spent. So it's a statutory requirement. And the BEPP that you see on the website is in fact one which has gone through the council process and has been approved by the council. Let me then just turn in that document to the point about the ERF1117. We need to distinguish between speculation about what can be done on land and what is to be done on land. I speak as a housing practitioner, meaning by the time it comes onto our radar screen, we have a plan and a tender in mind. When we talk at the level of speculation or what could happen to the land, we're actually in the realm of urban planning. And this land has not been planned. But as I mentioned earlier, we've been under some duress, and I've been under worry that this land gets further invaded and then lost to the council and lost to the citizens of Cape Town. And in our approaches to the Department of Public Works, we keep getting the same answer. Well, why do you want it? What do you do with it? Which is kind of, the question should be to the landowner, what are you going to do with it? And the question is, we were asked by the landowner to, we were asked to put something on the table that the council would want to do with that land.
Sorry, can we please give Jens an opportunity to finish his question? You were not afforded an opportunity to pose a question.
So that remains in the realm of speculation. What you read in the BEPP is a draft which was prepared by the Spatial Planning Department of the Council as what could be done. When I turn the question around, what ought to be done, if we look at the rate at which the western sort of growth axis is growing, the speed at which it's growing, Some of the public works facilities are in dire shortage. Where's the nearest magistrate's court? Where is the nearest police station? Those are functions of that department. They're not even coming up with answers on that. And that's where I'm trying to point their direction. I would say there are housing problems up the West Coast, and there I can point to a couple of really crisis flashpoints. In the regional planning exercise for the future of this growth area, we need to answer what we are going to do with this. We can't just keep saying no. And therefore, the spatial planning exercise for the West Coast, as Hans was talking about, is the forum at which this has to be clarified, not at the site level.
Thank you, Jens. I'm conscious of time. So, on national.
Environmental impact study being done.
Okay, I've answered this already in terms of the fact that as private land, the City of Cape Town has no jurisdiction over that land. As I've said, we have also been continuing to engage with the Department of National Public Works to find a way forward, because I understand your concern. I do understand your concern. I went out specifically on Thursday to have a look at the land, because I don't live out here, so I don't see it visually all the time, because I live in another part of the city. And it is something that we are taking up continually with our anti-land invasion unit, with the people in the city who are tasked with dealing with that, and we are trying to find a way going forward where it can be dealt with. As I've also said, we are endeavouring to make sure that people are on the housing list so that they do not have to end up living where they've been living for a while. So we are doing everything we can in terms of our jurisdiction to deal with that.
Is a mandamus an option?
At this point, I would have to speak to the legal people, but as it is private land, I think it would be very, very difficult for us to actually enforce it at this point. There are various things in the city, including the problem building bylaw, that might provide some way of dealing with it. But it would have to then end up in court, and that would be dragged out for a very long time. So it is something we're continuing to look at. Okay.
Thank you.
Could we ask some questions here? You've been talking around the table.
Thank you, Councillor. It is fair. There's not a lot of questions that's come from the back. So can I get questions from you? We're going to take 2 more questions. We need to start wrapping this up. I think a lot of the concerns has been addressed. So can we get 2 more questions? That gentleman right at the back. Can we get the mic to him, please? It's fine. We can pose. That's the second question and the final question.
Okay. In terms of the processes that have been followed before with similar situations, and I'm not talking about this, we've been told this is not going to happen here, so that's fine and everything. But what about the fact that we've been lied to before? We've been told before, Wolverine, we were told we'd be involved in that process, there would be something in place to prevent it spreading and all those kind of things. Nobody's ever come back to us about Wolverine. They're sitting there without toilets, they haven't got proper ablution blocks. That was squeezed through under the radar with an almost illegal, what do you call it, property... No. The investigation as well as viable. The viability report was done internally instead of by some external company or some entity that was non-biased. Instead, they squeezed that one through under the radar, and when 3,000 people signed a petition to say no, went to the mayor's office, we were told something, and the next day, whatever was told was totally the opposite said in the media. We were lied to in our face. So what's to say that it's not going to happen again with this property?
Thank you. Question is next. If it's fine with our political principles, I would actually personally like to answer that question. Thank you. Second question. This lady, and this will be our last question for the evening. Thank you. Would you mind introducing yourself because you're from the media? Get a mic on its way. Stand by.
My name is Monique Ball. I'm from Louder.
My name is Monique Duval. I'm from the Tigerberger newspaper. I'm talking loud because they want me to, not because I shout normally. My question goes to the MEC. He mentioned earlier in his address that they are at advanced negotiations with the National Department for the Land. So my question is, let's say best case scenario, the department gets the land. What does Provincial then plan to do? Do you plan to consult with the residents and say, listen, what do we need? Or is housing the only avenue?
I think, thank you. I think that that question is actually better answered by Councillor van Minnen, because the negotiations are between the city and national with the support from provincial government Western Cape. However, if you choose to answer on that, right? I think let's answer yours first, Councillor van Minnen, and then Minister Madikizela, if you want to add to that.
Thank you. Okay, I already addressed that when I spoke earlier. In the event that the city did have that land, and if it did then decide to go ahead, there would have to be extensive public participation as part of the land planning process. That would then potentially cover rezoning. It's currently zoned rural, as well as dealing with the EIAs, the Environmental Impact Assessment. And they are, in terms of that, extensive public participation processes that happen. But is that what your question is?
That's not my question. My question is, let's say you do get the land. What do you plan to do next? Do you come back into your consult, or is housing the only avenue that you're looking at? That's my question.
No, not at all. Human settlements would essentially do the transaction because human settlements is the department that would get the grants. That's the way the funding model works. But no, I mean, development and the future of the city is not just human settlements, not by any means. One would need to look at what is needed in areas, and we need to look at all sorts of things. So no, that is why I repeatedly said there is no plan for the city of Cape Town to build a large, low-income housing development there. And we've also referred to the issue that there are services that are needed out here. The issue of a police station is a big thing. That would obviously have to be driven by national. But schools, which would be provincial, there are a number of issues that need to be looked at. So no, just because human settlements would be involved does not mean it is a human settlements development. And I think that needs to be clear, because I think people get confused about that. They see human settlements involved and immediately they think it means B&G houses. And it most certainly doesn't.
What do you intend for it?
Okay, sorry, thank you, Councillor. With the greatest of respect, I think the Councillor has answered that question over and over again. What the city intends to do with it is to consult and to determine the need, and based on the consultation and based on the need and based on the legislative processes that it must go through, when they do get the property, then it can go. I think that question. I want to answer that gentleman at the back. That was a very important question. But before I do so, a comment worthwhile making. Someone earlier mentioned something about a worry about densification. Two things I want to mention on that. The term human settlement seems to trigger the thought of low-cost housing and giveaway housing. It's an incorrect perception. Department of Human Settlements, or Human Settlements Division within a municipality, means exactly that. Human settlements. Everything that goes with being human and your settlement in your area where you are. Police stations, hospitals, schools, housing, infrastructure, shopping centres, the list goes on. So we've got to get that clear. Human settlements does not mean giveaway housing, first thing. Densification, you're right, it's a very sensitive topic. The reality is, Big Bay is a high density development. So is the V&A waterfront. So is Century City. So we've got to be careful about tying high density development to give away low cost housing. Some of the most expensive developments in the city of Cape Town Metropole is high density developments. In fact, if you want to go and buy a property in the VA waterfront, get ready to pay 20 million plus for a flat. So let's not confuse the issue of densification with that of poor people and giveaway housing. I think we've just got to make clear. Okay. What I do agree with you with, and Mr. Smith made that point as well, is when the consultation process starts, that's where it's critical to get input from a community in the area to know what's going to work. Okay. I'm sorry, sir. We've made a promise to that gentleman. I want to answer that gentleman there because that's something that ticked a personal nerve. Your question is, you've been lied to before. You've been told things and you feel that government has just gone against that. I don't want to comment on Bloubergstrand because we're not here about Bloubergstrand. We're here about ERF1117 Bloubergstrand. Or was it? Yeah, it's 1117 Blouberg. Roughly beginning of 2000s. And I'm telling you the story because I was personally involved, and hopefully this will give you some hope. In the beginning of the 2000s, City of Cape Town decided to plunk a landfill site between Bloubergstrand and Atlantis. And if you can recall that. Went through a 7-year process. We mentioned earlier these processes take time. 7-year process of going through environmental authorization. There were public participation processes. It just went on and on and on. And what was the outcome? It was approved. If you can remember, it was approved. Went through all those legal processes. You know what then happened? The community actually stood together and decided this thing shouldn't happen. And why it shouldn't happen was because of political reasons in Atlantis, but moreover, because they felt the process wasn't followed right. And what started as being one of the biggest appeal processes in the Western Cape ever, ultimately resulted in a ministerial approval on that project being overturned by the community. So, to answer your question, and just for what it's worth, I was intricately involved in that process. Raised 25,000 objections to that and got a ministerial approval overturned. So don't ever believe that the community will be lied to. The power of the community is incredible. The power of what you want is incredible. The reality is we've got to stand together. This is not you and us against government. This is government and you saying we want to make sure the right thing happens on that property. So I want to give you that assurance, and you can personally take me up on that. If you ever feel that you're being cheated out of the process, you are free to contact me personally, and I will endeavour to investigate why that's happening, because that shouldn't be the case. There's a legal framework to follow, there's a consultative process to be followed, and only once that's true, even if it gets approved, it doesn't mean it can go ahead. I hope that answers that question. I want to wrap up the session because we are moving on, and I really do believe that the pertinent questions that were posed, the future of 1117, the informal settlement of Happy Valley, and what we can do going forward has been addressed and answered. And I'm hoping that it has made it quite critically clear that some of the messages that have been going around has not been speaking the